Well, good morning and welcome to the show. Jeff Beals at your service. Hope you're enjoying this midsummer morning that feels a little autumn-like. This is the only show you're going to find in the metro area that focuses on business expansion, real estate and construction, economic development, anything related to Omaha becoming more vibrant and prosperous. We're brought to you by D&M Roofing and Siding, as well as Dingman's Collision Center. My co-host, Trenton Magid, is taking a well-deserved weekend off. And in his stead, we have one of our good friends and colleagues, Brian Thomas from NAI NP Dodge. Good morning, Brian. Welcome back.
Hey, good morning.
Good to have you co-hosting the show with me again. You've been on a couple times before already.
Oh, yeah. So I think this is the third time.
The third time, okay. Yeah. And you're a commercial real estate broker over at NP Dodge. Tell us a little bit about your real estate practice.
Yeah, so most of my book of business currently is in the retail space and working with small to medium-sized business owners. So for those who are in the market for a turnkey brewery space, I have a listing at 6115 Maple, actually, that just came on the market this week. And so all you aspiring brewmasters and restaurateurs, go to Crexy and check that out.
My guess is you'll get some calls on that.
Already have.
my guess is if there's a turnkey brewery space available, there's going to be a lot of interest.
I know. I need to hit up Brickway since they just bought out Lucky Bucket.
That's true. They did. Yeah. I know. I love craft beer. I'm glad other people take the risk to do it. I just like to drink it, but I bet you'll have a lot of people interested in that
Absolutely.
spot. Well, there is no restaurant review this week. Grow Omaha Eats, sponsored by Cheer Athletics, will be back next week. It was off for the 4th of July week, but Sarah Baker Hansen, who is our resident critic, is whipping up a couple of good reviews. She's been reviewing and visiting a couple of restaurants, and so we're expecting to have reviews next week and the week after that, so look forward to that. Hey, a lot of you get the Grow Omaha newsletter, and for those who do, thank you. For those who don't, just go to growomaha.com and you can sign up for it. It comes out Thursday afternoons. Because of some logistical issues this week, we're giving you a heads up. It's going to be a rare delayed newsletter. So instead of Thursday afternoon, it's going to be coming out Friday afternoon. So if you don't get your newsletter Thursday afternoon this week, don't worry. We have not lost your email address.
And if you really are upset about it, all complaints can be directed to Trenton.Magid at npdodge.com, and I'm sure he will promptly answer any of these complaints.
In fact, any complaints at all you may have about Grow Omaha,
just send it to Trenton.
Are best directed to Trenton Magid and not Brian nor myself. Okay, so let's go into our news of the week, which is brought to you by Eagle Mortgage. EagleMortgageCompany.com is where they reside virtually. If you want to see where they reside physically, just go to 114th and Davenport Street. Outstanding mortgage brokerage services. Been in the business for north of 30 years, and they'll help you with any, FHA, VA, conventional loans. The thing is, owning a home is the American dream, and Eagle Mortgage helps you get that American dream, often at a better rate than many of the others do. They don't have to be beholden to one bank. They're a mortgage broker. They can shop it around. EagleMortgageCompany.com. All right, Brian, let's get into it. The first one, nice redevelopment plans coming to 30th and Emmett Street in North Omaha. A building called the Martin Luther King Jr. Center has been vacant for some time. And organization known as Brinshore Development plans to take that down and replace it with a 4-story mixed-use building. It'll have 39 apartment units and 4,000 square feet of commercial space. It'll take advantage of LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit requirements to meet affordability standards. So this 30th Street corridor, there's really coming along because just south of that is the Highlander project. Mm-hmm. And so I think this project is hopefully a sign that will continue to kind of expand a lot of that new development on that corridor.
And really what we're beginning to see is a lot of that money that was allocated back through American Rescue Plan Act and some of the other things that I know that like Senator Justin Wayne and a few of the other folks up in North O, like they are serious about improving, you know, whether it be retail, office, mixed use, multifamily, et cetera. very similar to what like Papillion is doing with their district, and Bellevue announced all the different things with Mayor Hike. So North Omaha is beginning to kind of roll out their plan, and I think that's really what we're seeing now, and that we're creating opportunity in North Omaha and really revitalizing in some of this redevelopment efforts that we're doing.
Well, and you make a good point. Talk about that ARPA money. You could say that we ain't seen nothing yet, because that's really on the front end, and we're talking about millions and millions of dollars. So I think you're going to see some pretty substantial investments in the Northeast quadrant, which is something to look forward to. Looks like one of the earliest major ones will be industrial buildings. A little bit closer to Epley Airport, but
really in dire need, to be honest. I mean, the current industrial district is looking pretty tired, even though it's fully leased up.
Well, if you throw up a good, high quality, high ceiling industrial building, you're probably going to have a tenant in there pretty quick.
Absolutely.
That industrial vacancy is pretty tight. And actually, in the third segment of today's show, we're going to talk about the office, retail, and industrial real estate markets. But first of all, another news item for you. It's pretty exciting. I drive around downtown every week, Brian, just to kind of keep up at what's going on for Grow Omaha. And as I drove by a few days ago on the nice lawn on the east side of the Holland Performing Arts Center, immediately south of Steelhouse, Omaha, I see a very encouraging sign: concrete barriers and fencing, which means that Kiewit is getting ready to start building what is going to be called the Center for Arts Engagement, $103 million expansion of the Holland Center. This is going to be pretty sweet.
I mean, the work that's being done downtown to bring art, culture, music, anything that kind of falls into that vein is just nobody else in the Midwest is doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and you think about the parks. We just passed the 1-year anniversary of the Jean Leahy Mall opening.
Yeah.
And I was not able to make it down for the fireworks and symphony show this year, but I talked to some people who did, and they said the park looked great. It was active. It was busy. And the other thing I've noticed, I'd been doing a lot of traveling in the region lately, and I was just in Columbia, Missouri yesterday. And somehow or another, we were talking to some guy on the street downtown, and he asked us where we were from, and we said Omaha, and he immediately started talking about the Jean Leahy Mall. He goes, "I can't believe what you guys are doing with those parks downtown." And we just spent like a whole afternoon there. I thought that was kind of interesting and encouraging. But yeah, the momentum and this addition to the Holland Center is just another phase.
Well, it's interesting you bring it up, because my family and I were in KC last weekend, right before the 4th of July, and as you come into Kansas City, like they're building the first ever women's professional soccer stadium right on the right-hand side as you cross the bridge when you come into the city. But when you look from an aesthetic view, when you come into any of the major metropolitan areas in the Midwest, we, in our redesign and everything that we're doing with the riverfront area, down with downtown, no matter how you approach Omaha, it is attractive. It is not this smoky industrial, kind of going back to some kind of industrial age type of site picture. We have a very, very, I would argue, probably the most attractive approach from any one of the major thoroughfares in the entire Midwest. Just my opinion.
I would agree with that, actually, because if you're coming from the airport, it's a very impressive view. Will only get better with the new Mutual Tower. And then last night, coming back from Missouri, I got into the metro area probably just maybe about 9:45, 10 o'clock, and it was mostly dark, but it was kind of that weird cloudy thing. And so I decided to just, instead of just taking I-80 straight to Southwest Omaha where I live, I just kind of did the 480 loop. There's that new bridge in Iowa that's open to downtown, and it's a flyover bridge, so it gets pretty high. And then that view from downtown, it was kind of mystical with the fog and all that sort of thing. But I agree with you. It's really starting to look very visually impressive, and will only get more so with these other projects. Well, another cool project that is on the docket is the Central Library. Going to be a beautiful building, southwest corner of 72nd and Dodge, immediately south of the crossroads. Driving by this morning, Brian, I couldn't help but notice demolition on DoSpace has already started.
It has.
You can see the insides.
Yeah, my oldest was doing some summer camps up at Creighton Prep, and so several times a week I was driving by there. So I've been monitoring progress every time I drive by there, and yeah, it's coming down.
Piece of trivia for those who weren't around at the time or don't remember, that was originally a Borders bookstore.
Oh, geez.
And then when Borders went out of business, it eventually became the Do Space. And Do Space functions will be incorporated into the future central flagship library there. If you want to see what it looks like, just go to growomaha.com, click on the projects page, scroll down a little bit, and there's a really cool photograph. Really not a photograph, more of an artist rendering of what that future flagship library will look like. But it is going to be
it's going to be a nice,
showpiece.
I mean, it's not quite on the corner, but I mean, it's going to be a nice anchor for that entire redevelopment area that's happening by the mall.
Absolutely. Hey, Brian, this was kind of encouraging. Wallet Hub reported within the last week that Nebraska has the fourth lowest energy costs in the nation. And that's not just natural gas to heat your home or electricity. It also even includes gasoline. And basically, the average Nebraskan, according to Wallet Hub, pays $384 per month for electricity, natural gas, and auto fuel. The only states with cheaper energy are in order: District of Columbia, Idaho, and Utah. Interestingly, the most expensive state is Wyoming. I thought that was kind of weird with all of the coal and gas that they have naturally in Wyoming. Iowa was kind of expensive. Iowa is the 8th most expensive. But anyway, with Nebraska being inexpensive, one of the things that is really important in the current economic development, site selection, corporate attraction world are data centers and high-tech manufacturing. Every city and state wants to manufacture electronic car batteries and semiconductors. And Nebraska is very much in the running for major semiconductor computer chip manufacturing facilities right now. Don't discount the importance of cheap power.
Yeah, no, and that's just, I really feel like this continues to be, and I know we're going to talk about it in a future segment a little bit later today, but it just kind of goes into that bucket of reasons why people should want to live here in Nebraska, and then, more specifically, live in the Omaha metro area. Whether it's having some of the country's lowest unemployment, whether it's having some of the country's lowest, and I get it. There's some naysayers on here, some, protagonists that would, counter with property tax and some other things, but there is work actively being done to lower that, to put us, more in line with, I think, where we want to be as a state. But there are a lot of things that we're leading the nation in that I don't think a lot of people that are from Nebraska would even realize.
Yeah, a lot of things that we take for granted around here are actually kind of special. Well, as we continue to attract people, housing is an issue. We've been growing a lot lately. Housing's been a little bit tight. We got a couple new multifamily projects to tell you about before we wrap up the news in Gretna. First of all, Gretna Landing Apartments, planned for 13 acres at 192nd and Highway 370, part of the new Gretna Landing development. If you're familiar with the area, this is the project where Fleet Farm will put its 180,000 square foot store. This will be 220 units. And then also Tiburon Ridge, a new multifamily development northeast of 180th and Highway 370, recently held a grand opening ceremony. That project is still, part of it's open, but part of it's still under construction. Will eventually have a total of 208 apartment units. The Highway 370 corridor through Sarpy County continues to explode.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody that's listening, that lives over in Papillion, I mean, right on the corner of Highway 370 and 108th, the first phase of development was Granite Lake, and now they're putting in Granite Falls, which is double the size of that development. And for those who are not looking to buy a house, they're putting in townhomes and some apartments on the other side, north side or south side of Highway 370, that is going to connect right to the trails over at Walnut Creek.
And so Brian, you live in the Papillion area, and you were talking about Highway 370, but just a little bit north of 370. Let's touch briefly on La Vista City Center, because the venue, the entertainment venue that's going in there, has got a lot of stuff planned.
Yeah, so I mean, anybody that drives on 84th, I mean, that goes right by like where 84th and I guess just past Giles, has known that at least for the last 15 months that whole area has been redeveloped. I think it used to be like an old Walmart that, back in the day or whatever before it was torn down. But they have a huge outdoor music venue that they're getting very close to opening. My understanding is, talking with some of the developers out there, is that they've already got 6 acts of local artists that are lined up to perform. But if you can imagine it, if you haven't driven, it's this big amphitheater style of venue where you've got walking trails, and I don't want to call it a lake. I'll just call it a big pond.
Lagoon.
It does have a water feature in the middle. But that's, behind. So people that are sitting back there, it's going to have, you've got a small brewery that's now come into that development. They're continuing to lease up a lot of the spaces as they become available. And, the investors, I believe, have that listing. But they're bringing in a lot of business, which is exciting.
And that, my friends, is your news of the week, your Omaha Growth and Development news of the week, brought to you by Eagle Mortgage, eaglemortgagecompany.com. When we come back, we're going to be talking about why you wouldn't want to move to Omaha. We're going to be talking about an article by a friend of ours, Kurt Strawhecker, local businessman, that really brings up some very interesting points about the desirability of this city and this metropolitan area. So you're listening to Jeff Beals and Brian Thomas of NAI NP Dodge, substituting for Trenton Magid. You're listening to Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding. Back in a moment on News Radio 1110 KFAB. And welcome back to the show. Jeff Beals sitting next to Brian Thomas of NAI NP Dodge. He is substituting for the vacationing Trenton Magid. You're listening to a show that is kindly and generously brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding. Eric Obrumt and his team at D&M Siding have been part of the Grow Omaha family for many, many years now, and we're quite proud of them. They just do such an amazing job with residential and commercial roofs. Doesn't matter whether you want to maintain them, like say you're a property manager or an owner of a warehouse or a shopping center, using their preventative maintenance program, which is state-of-the-art, top of the industry, or if you're a homeowner who just needs to replace the roof because it is worn out. Don't look any further. Just call D&M Roofing, and they'll take outstanding care of you, serving all of eastern Nebraska and western Iowa. And not that it really matters to a lot of you around here, but they also have a location in Houston, Texas as well. So
Fremont and that area is keeping them busy.
I suppose it probably is.
Yeah.
It's been a little stormy around here lately.
I don't know what it is about that area. Maybe it's just far enough out of the Omadome.
Yeah.
But they seem to always get the most severe storms.
Hey, Brian, the Omadome happened on 4th of July.
It did. It's like a parting of the sea.
Yeah, did you see that? Like,
crazy.
So there's this line of thunderstorms coming from, northwest of Fremont. Yeah. I'm like, we're going to just get slammed at the last minute. They split in two. Whoops, I just hit my microphone. Animating the way the thunderstorms split into two. And one went south of us, one went north of us, and we got drizzle. And everyone continued to shoot off their fireworks.
I imagine, because I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan or whatever, I imagine Gandalf out there with his staff going, "You shall not pass," and ramming his staff in and just everything splitting in the middle.
So that's what caused that?
I think it's Gandalf. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's probably
kind of cool. Well, last week, not just this past Thursday, but the Thursday prior, we ran a guest column in the Grow Omaha newsletter entitled, "Why Wouldn't You Move to Omaha?" And it's written by Kurt Strawhecker. Kurt is a very respected executive in our town. He is founding partner of the Strawhecker Group, one of the most extensive analytics and consulting firms focused on the electronic payments industry. Electronic payments industry is huge in Omaha. Mm-hmm. And Kurt's done all sorts of things, recruited talent to Omaha from all over the world. Interestingly, one of his sons, Nick Strawhecker, owns Dante, which is one of the most popular restaurants.
Amazing restaurant
in the city. So Kurt writes this article, and basically he makes a lot of very good points about why this is a great place. And it sounds like the reason he wrote the article was that he hears a lot of business owners or hiring managers say, "Oh, you can't get people to move here. You can't get people to move here." And he very politely says, no.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of success.
He pushed back against that narrative.
Yeah. And so Brian, it's interesting. You're previous life. You were command chief at Offutt Air Force Base before he got you to come into the commercial real estate world. So you were dealing with people that, you were trying to say, hey, we want you to come to Offutt. We want you to come to Offutt. What did you think of this article?
Yeah, so he touches on a lot of the same messaging that we're telling military families. Certainly now as a retiree, like the work that I do in trying to, counsel transitioning veterans, and I don't even really feel like I have to convince them to stay. I just feel like there is a lot going for Nebraska that is attractive for people to want to stay. I mean, and routinely, the only real negative feedback that I get about, why people wouldn't want to be here typically falls into one of two camps.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, of course, like everybody, it's almost like a coffee talking point around the water cooler, is property taxes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, so we're addressing that, or we're attempting to address that at the local as well as state level. But the other one is the weather. Like, I can't help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, if you were surprised, like I tell people all the time, like, if you were surprised and you came to the Midwest that it gets cold in the winter, like, we need to go back and have a talk with your teacher. I mean,
Your geography teacher.
That's yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think that we did an adequate job preparing you. So, but Kurt really talks about a lot of things in this article that we talk about, which is, and I phrase it differently, but it's the same message,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where else can you go that you have access to some of the best education in our country routinely? And that's not Brian Thomas' opinion. I mean, it is, but it's backed up by just do any kind of cursory research and look at how we compare to a lot of the other cities. Access to quality housing. And I get it. People that have been here a long, long time, like they kind of clutch their pearls a little bit about, the fact that homes are, on average, over $400,000. But when you look at other parts of our country, they would knock down the door to get a house for $400,000,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially one that's 2,500 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just, we could get into it, but he talks about a lot of great things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you bring up the weather, because I always acknowledge that too. And when people are talking about the pros and cons of Omaha, I say, all right, I'm not going to lie to you about the weather. It's perhaps our greatest weakness, but it is what it is. And how much of your life do you spend outside anyway, right? Most of the time you're either in a house, a workplace, or a car. And I'm also of the belief that if you allow weather to affect you too much, you're a little bit of a loser.
Yeah, well, so 2 quick points.
If you had too much. I mean, granted, I love to go hiking and camping, and I can't do it when it's nasty, and I understand that. But I think some of the people, I've seen some people use weather as too much of an excuse to not do things, and so I think there's a little bit of an overblown focus on it. 2 quick points on that. Number one is, I feel like that is changing. As the climate is changing, we were sharing on the break. I mean, this week, if you look at a weather map of our country, like, we're in a sweet spot of our country. Right? Where else in the country is it not over 100 degrees right now? Yeah.
Like Texas.
Yeah, down south, it's a boiling hell right now.
Or because we both have wives that grew up in Minnesota. Like, I was sharing, with you on the break that it was like 22 degrees in International Falls up by the Canadian border in northern Minnesota.
Yesterday.
Yeah. So, I mean, where do you want to be, right? And so that's kind of the first point. The second one, and we can kind of talk about this, I know you did too, went to a lot of the College World Series games.
Mm-hmm.
And so, unfortunately they didn't win. I grew up in Tennessee.
He's a Tennessee fan. You went to school at Tennessee.
I did, yeah. University of Tennessee Volunteer. So, but, talking with some of the fans that had come in there and kind of going back to Kurt's article, there were actually people I was talking to that were saying, you know what, I didn't know that this was here in Omaha, or I didn't know, and a few of them are business owners that were like, I'm going to come back and actually begin exploring moving my business here.
Yeah, just before we wrap this up, there was one thing that Kurt finishes up the article, and like I said, he's a businessman. He's part owner of Dante. His son Nick runs it, and he writes at the end of the article, just last week, my son Nick said that he talked to 5 professionals who were sitting at a table in his restaurant. They were in town to interview for management positions here in Omaha. So it's a pretty encouraging place. So for those of you who recruit and have to hire and are trying to get people in a very competitive labor environment, basically the message that Kurt sends in this article is believe, believe, believe. Don't have any inferiority complex thoughts into your head, and don't be apologetic about the city. Just recruit boldly to it, and it might increase your likelihood of being successful. So Brian and I are going to break for the middle of the show. We've got the news coming up. And then after that, we're going to talk about the local commercial real estate market. You're listening to Jeff Beals and Brian Thomas in for Trenton Magid on Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center, D&M Roofing and Siding on News Radio 1110 KFAB. And welcome back to the show. Jeff Beals at your service, sitting next to my friend and colleague Brian Thomas of NAI NP Dodge. Brian is here filling in for Trenton Magid, who's taking a couple weeks off. And we are brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding. And Dingman's is one of those places you tend to go there by accident, pun intended.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
But once you're there, you're glad you know them. Good people. So honest, so technically competent, such good customer service. It's a family-owned company. Trent and I know that family very, very well and have a lot of respect for them. I'm not making this stuff up because Trenton had his car hit by someone this spring.
I know, it's crazy.
Earlier this spring, I had a certain family member that maybe bumped someone else's car in a parking lot, so I had to pay for that one. And then I had someone who bumped into me in a parking lot on Wednesday of this week. Took it right over to Dingman's. Oh my goodness, they just do backflips trying to accommodate you. And I know that car will be maybe even better than new.
Aren't they one of the only auto collision repair companies in the metro that will actually work on Teslas?
I think so.
Like for whatever reason, like I believe that they are one of the only ones. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because Trenton was talking about that.
Yeah, I'm almost positive I saw that.
Well, we have your commercial real estate development spotlight brought to you by Noddle Companies next. Noddle Companies is the premier real estate developer in this part of the country. And they do projects all over the place. But here in Omaha, they got Steel Ridge, the Builders District downtown, Village Point West Medical Campus, Rivers Edge and Council Bluffs. But Exarban Village is probably one of their most appreciated, recognized,
and probably it's 100% leased up.
And we're going to talk about some at Exarban Village, the Interrail Food Hall, which is one of the most fun places to go have lunch or any other meal for that matter, has had some changes, and so we thought it would be handy to read to you the current tenant list at Interrail Food Hall. Okay, the first one's Soulful, which is Argentine-style empanadas, salad, and toasts. Then there's Zaytuna, which is Mediterranean food. The next one is Kathmandu Momo Station, which is Nepalese. Very good stuff. And also Burmese ramen. Then there's Smash City, juicy burgers and chicken sandwiches. We have Sofra Creperie, which has sweet and savory crepes. Gravy Train, which is kind of, you would like that, Brian, with your southern food preferences.
Yes.
They serve brunch and coffee there. Had a relative from South Dakota that was in town with us a few months ago, and he follows along on Omaha Food Lovers, and he's like, I'm like, where do you want to go in your town? It's a Gravy Train in Exarban. So we went there. It was good. Pop's Pizza, Nori, which is sushi rolls, rice bowls, and things like that, and then Reagan's Lobster Roll, which is a darn good New England style lobster roll place. So that is your commercial real estate development spotlight of the week, brought to you by Noddle Companies. If you want to learn more about Noddle Companies, just go to noddlecompanies.com. Brian, we have an NAI NP Dodge real estate market report, which is coming out this week, and we're going to scoop it a little bit.
Yeah.
And share some information about what's going on in the real estate market. A lot of our listeners care about that because, they're just curious about what's being built and what the market's like. So this is kind of a little overview. First of all, let's talk about the industrial market. Out of all of the 106 million square feet of multi-tenant industrial space that is on the market in our metro area, a grand total of 2.6% of it is currently vacant. When you get that low, it's like having pretty much no vacancy. It's an interesting challenge.
It continues to be the pace setter. I mean, I know we've talked about it in the past, but and I think we kind of referenced it, a little bit more broadly. But if you build an industrial flex building anywhere in the metro, to include if you move southwest towards Lincoln, it's probably already pre-leased when you're going to build it. And the rents continue to come up on that. I think there's some new developments out in kind of that I-80 Highway 50 corridor that are like $7.95 plus triple nets, but it's really driving north of getting close to like 9 and 10.
Reports of the death of the office market are premature. Vacancy rate in Omaha office right now only 6.9%. Where it's not a robustly growing commercial real estate sector, but despite the work from home stuff, it's no apocalypse or Armageddon. The office market in Omaha is actually fairly healthy.
So what's interesting about the office market, and it's a little bit misleading to anybody that doesn't actively follow it, is a lot of these office spaces are being completely redeveloped into something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see some of this office getting gobbled up, it's getting either rezoned, or if it wasn't already previously permitted, it's getting turned into some kind of retail operation or what have you, right? But yeah, office is definitely on the come up. It's still secondary, I think, to what we're doing with industrial and retail, but it definitely has moved up quite a bit.
And then retail vacancy also very, very low right now. 4.7% is all. The Omaha retail market is about a total of 65 million square feet. Not a lot of new retail space under construction, but what we have, we're filling it. And a lot of it is because of adaptive reuse of retail space.
It really is. And I mean, when you look at what the rates were this week from a commercial lending perspective, a friend of mine and business acquaintance who's a lender, we're trying to put a deal together in Bellevue right now. And I mean, they're underwriting rates at 8% right now on commercial. And so it's tough,
That's great. Well, we're going to take our final break of the hour, and when we come back, Brian Thomas and I are going to bring you the Turner Construction Lightning Round. Back in a moment on News Radio 1110 KFAB. And welcome back to the show. Jeff Beals and Brian Thomas at your service. Brian's substituting for Trenton. We're brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing. It's time for the Turner Construction Lightning Round, brought to you appropriately enough by Turner Construction. That is an outstanding international firm that has wrapped its arms around the local Omaha market and become one of Omaha's proud local companies. So it's really kind of the best of the both worlds with Turner. You've got this deep bench of talent and of resources that Turner can draw upon for your project, but they have a lot of people who sit in offices and work on construction sites in Nebraska. And also, for those of you who are in the trades, by the way, always keep Turner in the back of your mind as a good place to work. I have been so impressed in the last few years that we've been working with them on Grow Omaha about the way they treat their people. And so it's a nice place to work. And then for those of you who hire construction companies, the benefit is you've got that healthy culture and everyone wins when you use Turner Construction for your project. Turner Construction, sponsor of the Lightning Round. Well, some of the things we have on the docket for you today. First of all, a future Culver's quick serve burger place getting really close to opening right adjacent to the world's biggest Hy-Vee in Gretna. It is the world's biggest Hy-Vee, at least until they build a bigger one.
Well, if you look at how long it took them to build this one in terms of the last one that was built, I think Culver's is safe.
It might be. It might be a little while. While. Cops Pizza, a real popular place here in Omaha.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, this is darn good. They're going to actually open a fourth location in Overland Park, Kansas City metro area. The plan is to open in late July. So this is kind of interesting. The owner is from Kansas City, and as I understand it, moved to Omaha to open up his pizza place. Opens it in Omaha. Now they're up to 3. They've got 72nd Street, West Omaha Papillion. They're doing great. So now he's opening a fourth one back in his hometown of Kansas City. So
I hear the brunch thing is going good too.
I've not yet tried it, but I want to try it.
Yeah.
You say the term Sunday brunch to me, and my ears pop up. I love Sunday brunch.
We know how we both feel about breakfast.
You want to know a fun Sunday brunch place? Have you ever had Indian buffet for Sunday brunch?
Never.
I love Indian food. That's a fun Sunday brunch. So there was a couple times after church on Sunday, the kids and Stephanie and I have hit an Indian place. One time was Astoria on 108th, and we went to another one. I can't remember, but good. That's kind of fun.
If it has curry, I'm there.
Oh, the spicier, the better for me. Moot's Pizza, Mootz, Moot's Pizza, very close to opening at Countryside Village. And this is going to be on the backside or the north side of Countryside Village, just south of Christ the King Church. I'm pretty sure this was a food truck that has gone bricks and mortar.
It was.
Okay, and they posted on their Facebook page, what was it, maybe yesterday, that they're one city permit away from opening. So a lot of people are really getting excited about trying this. Brian, I've been to Smash Park in Des Moines, Iowa before. Fun place. We're getting one in La Vista. We've got an update about the plans to open the La Vista Smash Park.
Yeah, so they were shooting for fourth quarter this year, but just due to some construction delays and things like that, they just recently announced, and I think it was widely reported on all the major news, local news, that they're going to slide, I believe, to the end of the first quarter, beginning of second quarter next year, which isn't a huge delay. Actually, I think it'll line up nice because they're doing tournaments and games now at the La Vista Sports Complex. So I think it'll be a great time right after the winter to open up because there's going to be a lot of human beings that are staying in those hotels down there.
Well, yeah, you think about the number of soccer teams that La Vista, Nebraska Multi-Sports Complex attracts.
They're doing lacrosse there too now.
Oh,
They're
I suppose
actually,
that makes sense.
So they're actually playing, like some of the lacrosse leagues are actually playing down there now.
That sport becoming very popular in the Midwest.
So did you know it's the number one growing sport in our country?
I'm not a bit, even more than pickleball.
Well, okay, well, maybe not pickleball.
Pickleball is not.
So I actually just learned this because of a client I have. Girls lacrosse, women's lacrosse is the fastest growing sport for women.
I'm not surprised to hear that because I know whenever you drive by one of the high schools, you always see the lacrosse kids out there practicing. We had the ribbon cutting for On the Border Mexican Grill and Cantina in Papillion scheduled for July 18th. If you're looking for a little small town place that people are saying good things about, you might want to check out BW's Bistro. It's in Cedar Creek, Nebraska. And I'm a native Omahan, and I got to confess I had to look up Cedar Creek.
I did.
But it's really not that far away. It's right on the Platte River, on the Cass County side of the Platte River, southeast of Springfield, northeast of Louisville. And then Crave Gym, Krav, Crave Gym, plans to open its first Nebraska location this fall in a 3,600 square foot space near 203rd and Pacific Street. Crave Gym has 3 existing locations in central Iowa, the Des Moines, Iowa metro area. So it's a smaller gym, but these smaller specialty gyms have become very popular because they focus on one particular thing.
Yeah, I mean it was like Orange Theory.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it kind of falls in line with that. They have their own little niche thing.
And that's it for this week. The music is playing, which means that Brian and I have to go do something else. And but we'll be back with you. Brian, thanks so much for being a part of the show.
Absolutely.
Brian Thomas, NAI, NP Dodge, substituting for Trenton Maggot. Show's been brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center, D&M Roofing and Siding, and Turner Construction. We'll chat with you next week at 9 o'clock right here on News Radio 1110 KFAB. If you like this video, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And remember, Grow Omaha is not just media. This is a mission. We are trying to build up Omaha and make it an even better place. We can only do that with your help. Share this video with your friends, neighbors, and family.